In Matthew, Jesus asks us to take his yoke upon ourselves, though many of us have a difficult time doing that. But if we trust Jesus, he promises that he will help us. Welcome to Pastor's Point. I'm Dr. Jamie Schmitz. Today's message is from Pastor Brent Smalley of Northwood Church of God in Northwood, Ohio. His message is entitled, Trust.
Trust. It takes a while to earn trust, doesn't it? I'm glad you're here with me today. This is a God moment for us. I've been given this opportunity to speak here on Pastor's Point, and I just appreciate this opportunity. My prayer for us today is that God, He has something for you to hear today. And I want it to be heard, and I want it to be understood in your hearts today. Jesus has said more than once in Scripture, He wants us to see with our eyes, hear with our ears, and understand with our hearts. And that's my prayer for each of us today. Today we're going to be reading a very familiar verse to many. Be reading from Matthew 11. Be reading verses 28 through 30. And I'm sure if you've gone to church for 10 minutes, you've heard this scripture. But today I want us to take a deeper look and see what God's trying to speak to us today. But before I get started, if you don't know, I like to ask a lot of questions when I preach. So before I get into the scripture today, I want to ask a few questions. I want us to get a mental picture of what we're going to be talking about today. One of the questions I'd like to ask is, are you tired? I mean, really down to the bone, tired. Like you don't want to get out of bed, tired. You don't want to function, tired. Another question I have for you. Do you feel like you're buried under a mountain of things? Another question I thought of this morning. Do you feel like you're carrying the world on your back? That's a tough question. Do you feel like you're alone? That there's no hope? There's no help anywhere? Do you feel that no one understands your situation, or no one could ever understand your situation? I'm hoping to be able to answer some of these questions for you today as we get into the scripture and as we read. Because I can tell you today, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I know someone who knows exactly where you are at. He understands the feelings you're feeling. He senses your hopelessness. He senses your helplessness. And He wants to help. So as we read this scripture this morning, today, I want you to hear the message that's in it. Jesus is talking to a group of people and He says, "Come unto me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Then He goes on to say, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. I like to do mental pictures, because I think sometimes if we get a mental picture of something, it really makes that something more vivid and clear and understandable. So picture with me for a minute An example I've had is, you've seen the World's Strongest Man contest, and they strap them to a semi, they put this harness on, and they pull this semi up a hill, and whoever pulls the semi furthest wins. I want us to picture a cart, a big wagon, full of everything that's in our life. You got that picture? It's full, it's big, it's full, and there's a harness, there's a rope tied to it, and there's a harness on the end of that rope, and you're in that harness, and you're trying to pull your wagon. You got that picture? Now, when I say this cart is full, I'm sure many of you have seen the Beverly Hillbillies, and you've seen their car as they are moving to California, and how full that car was. They couldn't fit anything else on or in that car. That's kind of how full our wagon, our cart is. That's the mental picture I want you to get. But we're not just trying to pull this cart up a hill. This cart that we've loaded up, that we're trying to move, is our life. And as we walk, we're trying to pull all of these things with us. And you know what's in your cart. You know what's in your wagon. It's kind of funny how we collect things through our life. Think of some of the things that might be in your cart. Do you have a couple of cars in your cart? Do you have a husband or a wife in your cart? Do you have kids in your cart? Do you have grandkids in your cart? A house, maybe two? Think of the things that may be in your cart that you feel like are tied to your back, and you're trying to move through life with this. I think a lot of times as we go through life, we have no idea where we're headed. We seem so lost. And a lot of times it feels like we're doing this alone. Even though we have a lot of people around us, it feels like we're doing what we're doing. Many times it feels like we're doing it alone. As we move, and as you've seen the Strongest Man's contest, when they put the harness on, and you see how hard they pull, and they're moving side to side, trying to get momentum, trying to get that, whatever they're pulling, the airplane or the semi, whatever it is that they're pulling, they're struggling with everything that's in them to get that object to move in the direction they want it to move. But it's difficult. It's difficult. I want us to get a different picture now. What if you had help pulling your cart? The World's Strongest Man contest, they don't get any help. They got to do it on their own. They got to pull that object the furthest to win the contest. What if we had someone that wanted to help pull our cart? Jesus is telling us in this verse that he wants to help us pull our cart. But what has to happen first? First, he says, "Come unto me, all you that are weary and heavy laden." How many of you are weary? Really dead dog tired? How many of you are heavy burdened? You don't feel you can even get the cart to move anymore. There's things falling off of your cart. It's so full. There's so much weight you can't even get it to move anymore. And it's frustrating. Jesus says, "Come unto me." There's an action verb there, isn't there? What's he calling for us to do first? says, come to me. I can help. I can do this. I'm more than willing. You may think as you're pulling your wagon, there's not one more thing that can go wrong or be added to that cart. It might just finish you. We've had those feelings in our life. Jesus says, come to me. We have to get to a spot in our life to where we understand we don't even know where we're going anymore. I can no longer do what I've always done. I can no longer be the person I've always been. Have you ever been there? Have you felt that? I can no longer go at the pace that I've always gone. I'm so tired. I need a break. I just want to be done with all of it. I just want to lay down and take a nap. We must admit we can no longer pull the kind of weight we've been pulling. We have to admit that to ourselves. We have to admit we need help. We have to come to Him. We have to surrender. And that's a hard thing to do. Next in this verse, Jesus says, take my yoke upon you. And then something else he says, and learn from me. Do you think there's anything you can learn from Jesus? I believe there is. There's a lot we can learn from Him. We can learn how to love. We can learn how to live. There are many things we can do by learning from Jesus. I know we don't have yokes. It's not a common thing today, but I want you to understand what Jesus is saying here. In the time of when Jesus was speaking this, everybody understood the yoke and the oxen. All right? If you have a young ox and he's just about to the time to get to work, the farmer would team this young ox up with a mature ox. He'd yoke them together. This young ox had many things to learn. That young ox, up to this point, has been able to go about and eat and do and go wherever he wanted to go. But now that he's in this yoke with this more mature ox, there are many things he needs to learn. He needs to learn to work with the other ox. He needs to step in step with the mature ox. He needs to learn to work. He needs to learn to be in harmony, to move correctly, to pull correctly. There are so many things that young ox needs to learn. And as I said, the young ox has had this freedom. But now that he's in this yoke, and if you watch, if you've ever been able to see this, that young ox is trying to get out of that yoke. He doesn't want to be there. He sees something, he wants to go there. He wants to go to eat that green grass over there. He wants to go drink out of that pond over there. But he's in a yoke. He has to stay focused on what he's doing. He has to understand what this mature ox is asking him to do. But until this young ox figures it out, the mature ox is doing all the work. He's pulling the load. I want us to get that. Have you ever been in your life or had parts in your time in your life where You just go and do whatever you want. You go over there, you drink there, you eat there. Jesus is asking us, take my yoke upon you. But when this young ox is hooked up with this mature ox, after a while, he starts to get the cadence. And he starts to trust that this other ox, this more mature ox, knows what he's doing. He knows where he's going. And before long, that young ox is in lockstep with the mature ox. And after a while, that young ox grows into a more mature ox. And they start pulling together, working together in beautiful harmony. Jesus, in this verse, is asking us to do the very same thing. Team up with me. That's all he's asking. Come to me. And your load will get light. You don't have to strain like you have been straining for so long. Come to me. I'm here to help. All you have to do is come to me. We have to get it in our minds that we don't want to do what we've always done. We don't want to go where we've always gone. Something else he said in this verse. He wants to see his heart. Jesus isn't going to make fun of you. He's not going to belittle you. It's like, what are you doing with all this stuff in your cart? What were you thinking? He won't do that to you. He's going to pull that load for you. He won't judge. He just wants to help you. And he knows if you come to him, he knows if you come to him, you will find rest for your souls. Does that sound nice? That sounds pretty great, doesn't it? Rest for your soul. Is your soul tired? Rest sounds so nice, doesn't it? We've been struggling, we've been battling, we've been fighting for so long. Rest sounds so nice. So why don't we do this? Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. Are you tired? Are you bogged down? Wouldn't we like to see our load get lighter? Not have to struggle the way we've struggled? So why don't we? Why don't we get in that yoke with Jesus? And as I was praying for this message, I think it comes down to one thing: trust. Maybe we don't feel that God really understands our cares. Maybe God doesn't understand where we want to go. Think about that for a minute. Or what we want to do. One thought I want us to get today is we can't make Jesus fit into our cart. That's not how it works. We have to come to the place where we get in Jesus' yoke. We can't make Jesus fit. Our cart is full. We can't make Jesus fit somewhere into that cart. We have to be walking beside him. lockstep with Him, in unison with Him, looking to Him for our guidance. Jesus invites us to take His yoke upon us. And there are a couple words I want us to get in this scripture. He said, my yoke is easy. Who here likes easy? I like easy. I like easy. The easy button at Staples, right? It's that easy. Just hit the button. Take my yoke upon you, He says, for it is easy. In the scripture, He invites us to learn from Him. Do you think there's anything we can learn from Jesus? How to act, how to talk, how to react, how to pray, how to love our Father in heaven. Do you think there's anything we can learn from Jesus? And I think the list is endless of what we can learn from Jesus. We need to get in there. We need to get in that yoke. And we need to let Jesus show us how to walk. We need to let Jesus show us how to talk. We need to let Jesus set the pace. Think about that for a minute. How many of us are in a racer's pace? It's like we can't wait to get to the next thing. Jesus will set the pace. And it's a pace we're going to be able to keep up with. It won't be too much. It'll be just right. He wants us to walk into the life He has called us to. Not the one we've always dreamed of or hoped for or wished for or still hoping for. He wants us to walk with Him into the life that He sees for us. That's all He wants. We must trust that He knows where we're going and He knows what He's doing. We have to believe that. We have to have the utmost trust in Jesus that He knows where we're going and He knows what He's doing. Can we do that? We need to allow our will to be broken. That's hard for us to do, isn't it? Because the disciples asked Jesus how to pray. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Do we want that? Do we want God's will to be done? For us to be able to yoke up with Jesus, our will must be broken. We must agree and believe that God has got the best thing for us in store if we just walk with Him, follow Him, believe Him, trust Him. When Jesus offers His yoke, I want us to think about the weight that we're pulling. Think of the weight you're pulling now. But when we get in the yoke with Jesus, He takes it all. He takes that burden. My yoke is easy. And He says, my burden is light. It's easy street for us because He's doing all the work. He's taken that. He's moving it for us. A thought I got as I was preparing for this message is, if you take out money out of your pocket, take out a coin, take out a dollar bill, and what does it say on it? It says, in God we trust. You've heard it over and over and over again. In God we trust. But I have a question for us today. Do you? Do you trust God? Do you trust God with your wife, with your husband, with your kids, with your grandkids, with your home, with your boat, whatever it is, you fill in the blank. You know what's in your cart. Do you trust God with all of that? He wants you to. He wants you to. Do we trust Him with our job? And that's scary. That's our livelihood, isn't it? But do we trust Him? Will we take His yoke, learn from Him, see His heart, and find rest? Or will we continue pulling our wagon on our own, asking God to pick up the pieces as they fall off and never get that rest that is promised? The choice is ours. The choice is yours. Keep struggling on your own, or yoke up with Jesus and feel that wonderful feeling of relief, of rest. It's your choice. Do you trust Him? Do you love Him? He loves you.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Pastor's Point. I trust this message has been a blessing to you and hope you consider connecting with this local church. To learn more about Pastor's Point, visit our website at WLMB.com/Pastor's Point, where you can send us instant feedback, request a DVD of today's show, and find a schedule of pastors for this season's episodes. Pastor's Point is a viewer-supported ministry that couldn't exist without the generous support of viewers like you. Please consider making a financial gift today and make sure to send us a note about how Pastor's Point has impacted you and your family. Thank you for supporting us and helping to bring these life-giving messages straight into people's homes through WLMB's award-winning program, Pastor's Point.